people really don't know the facts, right? Somebody said, that was never a constitutional amendment. Nobody ever said that it was. Abortion was never written into our Constitution. We know that. Anything that goes before the Supreme Court of the United States of America is basically there to be tested on its principles of constitutionality or not, right? Is there something in this document that protects you either way? That says, yes, you can do this, or, or no, that person shouldn't have done this, right? That's basically, it's very simple. Then the justices sit in there and they go through things and they look at past cases and past judgments. And all that happened with Roe v. Wade was this court said that court overreached.
Yeah.
They don't have the right to tell states what to do in this situation. They said it was an overreach. Mm-hmm. And so they just reverted it back to what it was, which is why the power went back to the states. That's all. It wasn't an amendment. It's not what it's just a reversal of a decision. They said that particular decision by that conservative court was an overreach on the rights of states. And so it went back to the states. And all the states that didn't want it in the first place had been waiting. That's why there was already on the books ready to go when that happened. They were just waiting for their court. And the irony is the court that passed it in the 70s was a conservative court, primarily almost same situation, like 4 appointees from Nixon. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely wild. And then the guy who went so hard in the paint for pro-life, Ronald Reagan, we've talked about this the last few weeks, was literally one of the most liberal Republican governors ever as far as abortion rights go. Mm-hmm. There was a flight out of Texas every single day that used to land in Los Angeles, and it would be filled with Texans going to LA to have abortions. Mm-hmm. It was like that was what the flight was known for. Yeah, and then he was told by the evangelicals, listen, if you want our vote, you're going to have to switch your stance. Well, and he did, and so has every candidate since then.
This is not a government thing. This is a religious thing. It predominantly is.
But again, if we're going by the letter, I don't understand the people. I don't understand the hypocrisy in it. The same people who, for the most part, and again, you know how I feel about the all or nothing, but many people who support the Second Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. Who are fighting for gun rights, mm-hmm. are also fighting for pro-life legislation. In many situations, right? In many cases. But if you want to go by the letter of the law, right? Separation of church and state. So how are you okay? You know what I mean? If you're talking about what was written in the Constitution, this was, the right to bear arms. Our forefathers knew what time it was. They also said separation of church and state.
Yeah.
They also said that. So why is it now that we turn a blind eye to that part of the documentation?
That needs to be a Supreme Court case.
You know what I mean? If you're talking about what was written in the Constitution, this was, the right to bear arms. Our forefathers knew what time it was. They also said separation of church and state.
Yeah.
They also said that. So why is it now that we turn a blind eye to that part of the documentation?
That needs to be a Supreme Court case.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But that's one of the biggest hurdles in this country, and that's the biggest. But that's the biggest asset that politicians have in this country is pandering to the religious groups. But we have Supreme Court justices who have been very vocal about their personal religious views. And that's frightening too.
Well, I mean, that's not supposed to have any weight.
No, it's not supposed to have any weight. And just because their political,
they're not supposed to, though.
Kimmy, they're supposed to have religious views. It's not supposed to affect their
decisions.
No, they're not.
Do you know that? No, they're not. Do you know that the only judges in this country that can actually espouse their religious views are Supreme Court justices? Everybody else, you're not allowed to share your political affiliation. You're not allowed to share your beliefs on religion. Like when you run for a judgeship.
You're not allowed to use it to run, but you don't have to keep it a secret. You're not allowed to use it in a campaign, but you don't keep it a secret. I mean,
what do you mean you don't keep it a secret? I mean, I don't really know the affiliations of the judges here on how they.
But you can find out easily.
It's not supposed to factor in at all. And these people literally are being put on the bench because of their religious views.
Yes,
because of their conservative religious views. So how is it for everybody else that's supposed to be as far from the bench as possible, right? Like that's supposed to play no role because you're supposed to be unbiased. It's supposed to be about the law. But the highest court in the land, these out here taking bribes, going on trips, flying on people's private jets, talking about their religious views. Like this it's the wild, wild west. They are supposed to be the checks and balances. Like they're the ones, right? We've talked about my feelings on the Senate. And I feel like if you want to look at real power, it's in the Senate, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Like, cool, you're the president. You're a figurehead. You can sign a lot of shit. The next guy can come in and unsign all of it. Yeah. Whatever. The senators, those are the people with the power. Basically, I don't want to say lifetime appointments, but no term limits. 6 years a pop. You know what I mean? While your House of Representatives are out here like hamsters in a wheel.
How do you want to make America great again? Do you want to better the schools? Do you want to take,
yes,
funding out of elections? I mean, it doesn't matter. They tried to break up the funding in elections, and all they did was come up with.
My tax dollars don't pay for your election. That's or they're not supposed to. Where are all of our tax? Like that's my question. But on top of all of that, though, the amount of power that these individuals are wielding without consulting their constituents at this point is so wild to me. Like that to me is the absolutely frightening part, because if you read the original Constitution, like this is before, pre amendments. There's seven initial articles in the original Constitution. And then we started adding things onto it. But the amount of power given to the states, like, was monumental. Like, it was really, the federal government was there to kind of keep everything cohesive, but really and truthfully, they did intentionally put the power in the state's hands. Because I don't think that they wanted a,
yes, an all-encompassing government,
a monarchy, you know what I mean? Like that would feel like it could, lord over, and they wanted states to be able to do what they felt was best.
Yes. But that's not the way this came out. That this is not Europe. The states are not individual countries. They're states. So there has to be some oversight, and there has to be, some level of oversight. So
they run every 2. House of Representatives, like the House runs every 2.
Yeah.
Senate runs every 6.
Runs every 6, yeah. And, it's just, but yet the president, who's really has the power to do a lot of shit when he's in office, is only 4 years.
But he's only got the power to do a lot of shit if he's got a Congress, if he's got...
That's not true. They can sign anything they want into...
And it can be vetoed.
Yes, they can. But they can use executive power to start a war. So, there's things that can be done by the president.
I get it, but starting a war... But there's
things that can be done by the president, and we can get rid of him every 4 years, and he can only be in there twice. So why would the Senate be allowed to be there forever?
Because they knew what that was. There are plenty of people who never ran for president but held those Senate seats for a very long time. We've had this conversation. Ted Kennedy is probably one of the most powerful politicians we've ever had in the history of this country. Never, ever had the title of being president.
Yeah, and they never thought he'd have a shot at it. But.
Well, after Chappaquiddick. Yeah. He definitely had a shot prior to.
I would like you guys to drop in our comments and let us know where you feel America needs to be made great again.
I love that. I absolutely, absolutely love that.
Let's where do you stand on America being great again? What part of America do you feel is not great, and what part do you think needs work? And
I think that should be a homework assignment for every American. In fact, if you're voting in the next election, you should have to come in with that written down. What are your parameters for making America great? Yeah. What does that look like?
What does it look like to you?
For sure. I love that. Good way to end episode 61. Please subscribe, share, and follow. It's important. Just be aware of what's going on in your local community, in your state, on a national level, because there's a lot of moving parts right now. And at some point, it's going to impact you. It's going to impact every single one of us.
Absolutely.
So that being said, we'll see you next time on the ManTFup podcast.
Peace.